Hello, everyone. I'm going to be presenting you how to build scalable analytic models for Fintech. But before going straight into the point, I would like to know how many of you have ever worked with perfectly clean data sets? OK, I see no one has been so lucky. I would also like to know how many of you have worked with Fintech data before? OK, a few of you. So I started to work at Mios like 2 years ago in the Fintech team. It was a pretty new team, and it started growing a lot. And meanwhile, it kept growing. We started to have more and more questions like, what does this field mean? What is the logic behind this metric? We even had different logics for the same metric. And this is something that is totally normal if you have worked before in a startup or in a newly created team. These people need answers very, very fast. You need to build them very, very quickly. And it's OK. But it becomes a point in which the company or the team becomes more mature. And then you need to stop, rebuild, and start from the basics and rebuild these models. That's exactly what happened to us like 6 months ago. And it's what my talk is going to be about. Especially in Fintech, data discrepancies directly impact revenue. And having multiple payment providers, such as Stripe and Adyen, it makes even much more relevant that we make our models reliable. The first thing that we would need to look into is what we want to track. In this case, we have grouped it in 3 groups. The first group would be revenue and margin insights. These are business metrics, like the fees that we are collecting, the margins, or the refunds. The second group would be payment flow health, in which we would include the chargeback rates or the share of wallet. We would be able to identify if there are any risks, any potential bugs, or, for example, a loss of adoption. And the third bucket would be product usage and adoption. In this case, these are contextual metrics, like volume by product, by method, or by channel. And what this shows us is how is the product is being used, and if the adoption is growing or lagging. This matters because it helps to drive business and product strategy. It also helps us track financial performance. It allows us to catch bugs earlier so that it doesn't snowball into bigger issues. And it also helps us align across all the teams so that we have only one single source of truth. Defining these operational metrics is one of the most critical points. The first thing that we should do is review our dashboards or our current metrics in case that we have them. And one of the key parts is speaking to the stakeholders, like top management and the PMs, because they know what drives the business decisions. Once we have done that, we should build these metrics. And once we have them built, in case we have already some metrics in place, we should compare them. In case there are some discrepancies that show up, we should investigate them. And it could uncover some edge cases or some gaps with the old logic. I wanted to give you an example that it indeed happened with one of our metrics, that is the gross share of wallet. For the people that haven't worked with Fintech before, what this metric means is it shows the volume that is being processed through Muse, in our case, that we get a commission from this, versus all the volume that is being processed by the properties. So what it occurred is that we were including all kinds of transactions and some anomalous payments. So it indeed was causing that in some cases, the percentage was over 100%, which it didn't make sense. So what we did is we started to only include payments, and we subtracted these anomalous payments, what made a more trustworthy metric for the top management. Being able to structure our DBT repository is also very relevant. We decided to go for the layered approach. That consists in 4 layers. The first layer would be the source layer, that it's the raw data that is loaded from external systems into our databases. The second layer would be the staging layer, that what it does is it cleans and it standardizes the raw data. The third layer would be the intermediate layer. It's a transformational layer where we are like reducing some redundancies so that it's ready for the marked layer. And the marked layer would be the last layer. This is where the business logic sits. What we would have some facts and dimension tables or an aggregated data set that is ready so that we can build these reports. Some benefits of this is that it keeps data clear and maintainable, and it also ensures modularity so that these transformations are reusable. One key part also is that these models are understandable, and not only to us, but also to any person that, for example, would look into these models like 6 months from now. So that's why we put a lot of attention into commenting and into documentation too. For example, all our fields need to be well documented in our DBT YAML files. Also, if we are doing some transformation that we think that is not very intuitive, we would include it with inline commenting. But we didn't stop there. We have created some Confluence pages in which we are explaining what approach we are taking, how is our DBT repository structured, and also some DBT testing that we are doing. Apart from that, we also participated in a company-wide project about commenting standards that what this enables or ensures is that all data analysts are doing the same practices in all our tools, like DBT, like Looker, or Databricks. So what we are specifying there is like where you need to do the commenting, how you should do it, and if, for example, you should include some stakeholder ownership. As we are working with financial data, and we are also working with external data, there are some common issues that we normally could have, that it would be like timing differences, missing transactions, or duplications. Some of the solutions that we have taken in place, and there are some, to be honest, that we are still building, would be building a data reconciliation model so that we can compare this external and internal data. For example, there was a case in which we had 2 metrics that were being merged into one field. It had different kind of volumes, different currencies, so the volume was totally wrong. And it's something that we wouldn't have been able to detect it if we weren't comparing this internal or external data. So what we did is we raised our hand, the data engineers weren't super quick, and we were able to fix it before it went to production. Another solutions would be applying business rules to detect this missing data or duplication. And the third solution would be setting some tolerance thresholds that it would trigger some alerts in case these limits were exceeded. Some of the best practices for DBT would be, in first place, doing some DBT tests for schema and uniqueness. For example, for this exact feature that we were building, it was going to be a high revenue feature. And we suddenly saw that our DBT model started to fail. And it was because we were having duplicate transaction IDs. This is a big issue because it means basically that we were doubling volume. So you can imagine if we report this, top management starts to analyze it, all forecasts will be wrong and all the conclusions too. So data engineers, as we couldn't run our models, solve also this very quickly. Some other best practices would be having a clear documentation so that any other data analyst can understand the logic behind. And another very good practice would be version control and peer review. In our case, we cannot do any modification in DBT and neither in Looker, for example, if another person isn't accepting this change. Like, for example, it happened that we were building a metric that was going to be very relevant, in which we had to do the conversion to euros, and the person that did the conversion in the wrong way to euros. It's human. We make mistakes, and it can happen. But as the person that was reviewing catch it, we were able to correct it. Regarding DBT quality test, what we decided to go is for a layered approach, that it's what it's recommended as best practices by DBT. So what we would do in the source layer we would check like data freshness and uniqueness. For example, in our case, if the data is not loaded over 18 hours, it triggers a warning. In case it is over 24 hours, then it triggers an alert to Slack. In the staging layer, we would check for information like, for example, if we have a deleted transaction, it should have, for example, a deleted timestamp too. In the intermediate layer, we are searching for not null and unique tests. And also, we make sure that all transactions need to have a reported volume and reported currency. And in the mart layer, what we would do is we would be checking a singularity test. And we also are triggering some alerts, like, for example, if the share of wallet exceeds a certain threshold, we also get an alert so that we can comment it with top management and we can analyze it. So the conclusions would be, first, and we think that this point is the most relevant, we need to speak with top management and we need to align and define these metrics. This is what is going to lead to the decisions that we are going to be taken in the models. The second one would be, we need to do as much testing and quality checks as we can. So this would be making schema validations, would be the DBT testings, and also doing a lot of documentation. And in third place would be validating with these external sources, because in some cases, it's the only way in which we can identify some issues or bugs that we are having. This would be everything by my side. I've included you a QR code in which it's a link that goes directly into the best practices of DBT. It's what we have used for building our models, and it has been really super, super useful. So I hope it's useful for you too. Thank you very much.